There is a switch inside your brain, a biological circuit forged over hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution, specifically designed to make spending money feel like physical pain. Right now, for most people watching this, that switch is off. And someone turned it off on purpose. Think about last week. Can you tell me without checking your phone exactly how much you spent? Not rent, not groceries, the coffee. The app you forgot you subscribed to 3 months ago. The impulse buy at 11 p.m. because checkout was one tap away. Most people can't answer that. And the silence you just felt in your head, that silence is expensive. Every single day you go through life without understanding what happened to that switch. Money is leaving your account in ways your primitive brain was never built to detect. Not in big, painful chunks, in drops. Invisible, frictionless, painless drops. And by the time you notice, weeks, months later, hundreds, sometimes thousands are already gone. There's a name for what's happening to you. And once you hear it, you will never tap to pay the same way again. In 2007, a team of researchers at Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, and MIT put test subjects inside fMRI machines, brain scanners, gave them real money, and watched what happened the moment they spent it. When someone handed over physical cash, a specific region of the brain lit up, the anterior insula. The same region that fires when you feel disgust, when you feel pain. Your brain wasn't just processing a financial transaction, it was grieving a loss. That's not poetry. That is your actual neurology, producing something measurable, something real, every single time money leaves your hands. Now here's what those same scanners showed when people paid with a card. That region, quiet, almost silent. The brain barely registered the transaction as a loss at all. Same dollar amount, completely different biological response. The pain switch off. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. If you were a company, a fintech, a bank, a subscription platform, and you discovered that a payment method could literally disable the part of the brain that resists spending, what would you do with that information? You would spend billions making that payment method as frictionless as humanly possible. You would shrink it to one tap. You would make it invisible. You would build entire design teams around the single goal of removing every remaining shred of transaction awareness. You would call it seamless. You would call it convenient. You would run ads telling people it makes their life easier. And you would never, not once, tell your customers what was happening on the neurological level underneath all that convenience. Studies show people spend, on average, 12 to 18% more when they pay with a card instead of cash. Mobile payments push that number higher. One-click purchasing higher still. And subscriptions. Subscriptions are the final evolution of this system. A charge so automatic, so deeply embedded in the background of your financial life, that the brain never even gets a chance to register it as a loss. Research puts the average American spending over $200 a month on subscriptions alone. More than 40% of people are actively paying for services they haven't touched in months. Not because they're careless, because a system was precisely engineered to keep that switch permanently off. Here's the part no one wants to say directly. Your struggle with money, the feeling of working hard, earning decent money, and still ending up with nothing left at the end of the month, it is not a character flaw. It's not weakness. It's not a failure of discipline. You are functioning exactly as designed. You were handed a Stone Age brain, built for a world where every resource was tangible, every loss was felt, where spending hurt because survival demanded it. And then you were placed inside a digital payment ecosystem, built by entire departments of behavioral scientists, UX designers, and neuroeconomics researchers, all working in coordination toward a single outcome, making sure your brain never, ever feels the true cost of what you're buying. You are not bad with money. You are a cave person being hunted by a system you cannot see. Here's what that system looks like at scale. The subscription economy is now a multi-trillion-dollar global market. It was built on one foundational insight: make the first charge small enough to feel painless, and humans will forget it exists. Auto-pay was not designed for your convenience. It was designed to keep your pain switch in a permanent off position. The moment a charge becomes automatic, your brain stops experiencing it as a decision. It stops processing it as a loss. It becomes invisible cash flow, leaving your account with zero biological resistance. Month after month, year after year, compounding silently in the background of your financial life. And here's what makes this genuinely difficult to fix. You probably have no idea how many of these invisible drains exist right now. Not because you're not smart. Not because you're not paying attention. Because the entire infrastructure was architected around the fact that your primitive brain cannot pay attention to something it was never designed to feel. There is a version of you that will finish this and still do nothing. That will put the phone down and tap to pay for something inside of 10 minutes. And the uncomfortable truth is, without the right pattern break, that version isn't weak. That version is just running the default settings in a world designed to exploit exactly those defaults. Every month you stay there, the invisible drain compounds. And the gap between where you are financially and where you want to be, a significant part of that gap isn't income. It's the bleeding you can't feel. Here's what turns the switch back on. It is almost frustratingly simple, and the behavioral science behind it is solid. It's called the 7-day cash rule. For 7 days, just 7, you use only physical cash for every non-essential purchase. Coffee, lunch out. Any discretionary spending. No card, no phone, no tap. You carry bills, you count them, you hand them over, you watch them leave. What happens neurologically is immediate. The anterior insula reactivates. Physically handing over a $20 bill fires the same lost circuitry your ancestors used to protect their resources on the open savanna. Multiple behavioral economic studies show that people who switch to cash for everyday purchases cut their discretionary spending by 15 to 20%, without any additional budgeting, without apps, without conscious willpower effort. Not because cash is a superior financial tool, because cash is a biological one. The pain isn't something to work around. The pain is the answer. It was always the answer. What changed is that an entire industry convinced you it was a problem to be eliminated and made billions doing it. At the end of those 7 days, something shifts. Purchases start to feel like something again. You begin to notice when something costs more than it's worth. You catch yourself before the tap, before the click, before the third streaming service quietly renews. Your financial awareness doesn't just improve, it becomes instinctive because you've reactivated a system that was always there. It was dormant, not destroyed. The goal isn't to live in cash forever. It's to rewire the reference point, to remind your brain what a loss feels like. So when you return to digital payments, you carry a calibrated instinct that the frictionless world had quietly erased. But here's the question worth sitting with tonight. If spending genuinely felt like what it actually is, a real, tangible loss of something you worked for, how different would your financial life look? How many subscriptions would survive the pain? How many impulse purchases would collapse under the weight of actually feeling their cost? The cash is just the tool. What you're really doing in those 7 days is something much deeper. You're taking back the switch, and once you know it exists, once you understand that the numbness you felt around money was engineered, not natural, you cannot unknow it. That is the most powerful budgeting technique you will ever have. Not an app, not a spreadsheet, just the willingness to feel the loss again.